So I'm about 3 months into working on my memoir in earnest, like full blown, getting up in the morning, finding time on Saturdays, all that. And this is my vlog, bringing you up to speed on the process. So welcome. In today's vlog, I just want to kind of unload on a couple of things that have been on my mind. One is my difficulties and my journey with finding a theme. And the other one is just some reflections and feelings on writing friends. Let's talk about writing friends first. One thing that I have just noticed whenever I've talked about writing with other people, when I'm just out in polite company and I mention, oh yeah, I'm working on a book. Usually people just give me a blank stare and change the subject, or they just say, oh, that's interesting, and move on. They don't even know what to ask or what to offer. Usually it's just like a complete end of the conversation if you bring that up. And I think the reason is because it's not very relatable. I think that a lot of people, at least in my experience, will say that, oh yeah, I'd like to write a book, or I've thought about writing a book. But that is an entirely different story from actually writing a book. And not just writing it, but making a conscious effort to build a platform and be conscious of your theme, be conscious of what your audience is going to be and what voice you need to write in, and like what your intended effect is on your intended readers. There is so much work that goes into that only another writer is going to understand. So I've just noticed as I've mentioned the fact that I'm writing now and again to other people, it usually ends the conversation as far as that part, and then we go on to something else because it's not very relatable. And I don't think that this reflects negatively on anyone. It's not easy for me to talk about with people who don't get it, and it's not easy for people to talk about with me if they don't get it. Probably the same kind of thing if I talk to anybody with a career that I don't understand. I don't have a vocabulary. I don't have a context. I was talking to a neighbor the other day whose husband works in some technical data field, and this is her husband. And she goes, I have no idea what he does. I literally have no idea. I can tell you the company he works at and his title, and that is all. And they live together, right? So I think it's not uncommon for people to be friends or in family with people that you talk about, oh yeah, I'm a writer, or I'm writing a memoir, or I'm writing a book, and they'll be like, oh, okay. And they just don't understand anything about that world because it is its own world. And I think part of my journey with that is just coming to accept that even though it's like a huge part of my life, writing this book and figuring out all the details, that a lot of other people are going to have no idea that there is even a huge world included in those words, I am writing. That they are so into what they're into that they have no idea what you're talking about and the whole universe that it portrays when you say, I'm working on a book. And so there's some mixed feelings that I have with that. And that is, feeling a little bit misunderstood or invisible. Not really. It's not like this huge thing like, oh, I feel so misunderstood and invisible. Like, no, I'm not like sad about it. But it is that little piece of like, I'm not connecting though with people around me when I bring this up because they don't connect with this idea. And so something I've really been thinking a lot about lately is just how awesome writer friends are. How when you meet someone else who writes, they get you and you get them in a way that nobody else does. Now, of course, there's other aspects of your life that they may not really get, and vice versa. But the writing aspect, it's like you immediately get each other. And this happened to me yesterday 2 times. I went to church, and this one girl was speaking, and she mentioned that she writes fiction and how it's hard for her to talk about, and she doesn't really want people to come up and talk to her about it because it's embarrassing for her to even bring up, because people always ask questions like, why aren't you published, or are you published? But she just mentioned it in passing with something that she was talking about. And I walked right up to her after and I said, I like to write too. And we just looked at each other and we're like, oh, a friend. We get each other. And so we just exchanged notes for a minute of like, oh, what writers' conferences do you go to? And what genres do you write? And different little things. And we just agreed that, you know what? We see each other immediately in a way that other people maybe don't, because the writer heart sees the writer heart. It's a calling. It's a calling that you can't run from. If you run from it, you become miserable and it haunts you, and you didn't ask for this, but it's something that is yours and you have to figure out what to do with it. So it's a writer friend is a special friend. And then later yesterday, I went over to just bring a treat to a neighbor. And she was like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. And then she brought me, her husband came out and brought me a copy of his new book that has just been published a couple of weeks ago through a respectable publisher, a very exciting accomplishment. And I had no idea that he was a writer. And so immediately I felt a connection with my friend and her husband. I didn't tell them at that moment that I wrote because we were in a hurry, but I thought, hey, I have an idea of what he's been going through because he's been doing all this work. And I intend to have a conversation with them later when we have time and just ask him questions about his process of getting an agent and the editing process, all these things. But I immediately am like, oh, wow, I know you've been working on something big in the background, and I wish I'd known this earlier so I could have been a support, you know? And also I was talking to someone else a few days ago, actually a therapy client who was talking about her writing. And she said, and I just totally identified with what she said. I just listened. I didn't make it about me because I was being the therapist. But she just said that her writing is a calling and she can't run from it. She's tried to run from it, but it would make her miserable to run, permanently from it. And I completely connected with that because I thought that's exactly right. All the writers I've met, and this is certainly the story with me, you don't go out seeking it. Like, why would you seek this why would you want this kind of lifestyle that is emotionally taxing, isolates you from other people, makes you unrelatable, gives you this incredibly stressful goal that you feel compelled to strive for that may never be achieved, and yet you feel like you've got to do it, right? So writer friends, writing people, they're so special because they get it. They get the journey. They get how hard it is. So yeah, that's just something I've been reflecting on, is the importance for me to connect with other writers. And I'm excited because I'm going to a virtual writers conference all week this week in the evenings. And then next week, there's going to be a part where we pitch to some agents and publishers. So that'll be fun too. And I'm excited to mingle and mix with some of these authors. Now, the other thing I wanted to just, throw out there is that I'm struggling a lot with theme. And I feel like I overuse the word struggle, but I'm sorry, struggle is a thing. Maybe we need a lot more synonyms for the word struggle. I'm doing battle with theme. I'm just going to read 31 themes that I have thought, oh, this is in my book, and this is in my book, and this is in my book. And some of them could be subdivided, or clustered together into categories. So I think this really can break down into just a few themes, but still I have to decide which ones in my memoir are the more prominent ones. And I think if I overthink it, it's going to be a problem. I just need to write and see which ones emerge as the more prominent themes, and then go back and rewrite to make sure that it's not too scattered. But here's some of the themes that I am dealing with. Hyper-religiosity, autism, physical abuse, divorce, remarriage, poverty, suicidality, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, education, complexity of human behavior, relationships, grief and loss, death, growth amidst adversity, therapy, Eastern philosophies, controlling others, letting go, living by a checklist, masking, disabilities, finding meaning, judging others, books and reading, alcoholism, homelessness, veteran military, the justice system, accountability, and truth-telling versus lies. So that is a really quick and dirty list of 31 themes that I have, and maybe they're not just, maybe theme is a strong word, just different sub-threads, little topics that are woven throughout. So I look forward to figuring out which ones are going to emerge as the most prominent and working on those. And if you enjoy following along, please don't hesitate to subscribe. And if you look for a link in my description, there's a little download you can get where I share my reasons, my top reasons for why I'm writing this memoir. In case you vibe with any of that, you might be interested. So thanks so much for following along, and I'll see you next time.